Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to my podcast. I'm really excited today. I've talked to some great Christian people over the last year, and I'm going to talk to another one today. But along with that, this person is also a close friend of mine and has jumped in and helped and been a real asset to Hog. And before I introduce you to Paul, I'd like to give a little drop a name with law firm of Williams and Ellaby, which is a personal law, car accidents or getting injured at work. Joel Williams is a super guy. He's got a great staff in there, and if you need a good attorney for that purpose, I'd give him a shout. And I've been fortunate I haven't needed to use them, but if I did, I would. And I'd like to introduce Paul. How you doing tonight?
I'm doing good, Bob. How are you?
Good. I'm looking forward to this little conversation because one, we've known each other almost 20 years. We became friends through baseball, and then you came out to North Star one Sunday, and I invited you and Ellen to a Hog meeting, which you came to, and then the next thing I knew, you were interested in getting involved, and I figured, well, I know him, I trust him, I'll make him my vice president of operations, and it's been, you can be my best friend or my worst enemy sometimes, but I love you for the way you're honest with Hog and myself, and it has helped make me a better leader, and I look forward to this conversation, and I think when people watch it, I think they're going to enjoy it.
Well, I hope so, Bob. I hope so. As I told you, I said, it's going to be interesting what I say.
It could be interesting what you say, and that's great. But let's just introduce ourselves to each other by not to us, but to the people. We became great friends because my son and your three sons were all baseball players at Lasser High School. And then they all four of them, your three and my one, all went on to play college baseball, which was a real treat for you and I to get them to see them play at that next level.
There's no question. I mean, it was a magical time. We were very fortunate that both of us were in a program at Lassiter Baseball. 7 out of 15 years, we were in the state finals of the largest classification in the state. So it was just something very special. We were put kind of stars aligned, and we were put there together. Mm-hmm. And we both loved baseball. Then you went on to coach my son for 3 summers. And Brent loved you and loved the way you coached. You were what I would say an old school baseball coach that believed in wearing the hat the right way and not having sunglasses on unless they were the right kind of sunglasses, putting to see fly balls instead of looking cool. There's a lot that Brent learned from you, and I think that you and I share the same vision of how the wonderful game of baseball can bring so many things together as far as the memories and you and I talk all the time about the old Yankee teams, the Mick, and we have a lot in common as far as our love for the history of the game of baseball and the way it should be played.
Well, one of the things, one of my rewards is to see kids that I coach, your son being one of them, and so many of the kids at Grand Cop that went on and played college baseball and still come back and say, "Hey, coach, how you doing?" That means so much. Just like your son, Michael, he lost his favorite coach this, I guess it was late April or early May when Coach Georgia State Panthers passed away from a long battle with cancer. But what a great coach he was, and what a great influence on young men.
Well, Coach Mike Hurst was a strong Christian man, and he took my son under his wing very early on. And my son was an undersized second baseman that I was just hoping that he started out getting books paid for, which was just fine, just so they could say he was on scholarship. And then all of a sudden, he became an all-conference player, and by his sophomore year, he started every game for 3 years. And Coach Mike Hurst was like, when you hand off your son to somebody at a university and collegiate sports, the time commitment is enormous. And it's like when Michael said in his nice email about Coach Hurst when he passed away suddenly after a long battle of cancer, he basically, called him a second father. And that's all you can hope for, is when you hand them off to somebody that they can be trusted and can, mentor your son the right way, because that's what they're going to remember the rest of their life. So it was such, I believe things happen for a reason. And I think that happened for a reason, just as you were kind of that guy for my son, Brent.
Well, I appreciate those words, but from what you just said, we'll take our story from the ballpark to the church. And Bob Kelly went to North Star one Sunday, not knowing anybody at North Star Church other than Tracy. My daughter was going there, and Keegan was in a little Christmas recital. And so we went to hear it, and you know how those all go. Those kids don't, all they're doing is smiling and waving and everything. So the pastor was a guy by the name of Mike Lynch. At that time, meant nothing to me at all. And Mike gets out there, and a lot of people have heard this part of the story, but because we're talking a little baseball beforehand, Mike was doing the sermon David and Goliath, and all of a sudden he jumped over, and I hear him talking about Bobby Cox. Well, you know me, Bobby Cox. I sat right up and listened, but I also tapped Janie and said, hey, God's got me in this chair for another reason. Well, I'm getting ready to start my 13th year at North Star and my 10th year with our ministry of helping one guy. And I know when you first heard that I was working at a church and starting a ministry, I said to Ellen, is that the same Bob Kelly who we know from baseball at Lassiter and Sandy Plains? But that's how it all started.
That's not how it went at all. No, honestly, Bob, you from the very get-go, when I first met you, you had a heart of gold. So it really didn't surprise me, honestly. You may have been surprised at yourself, but you were always one of the kindest, giving people that I knew. And I just gravitated toward you from when we first met. And we love the baseball, but I saw something, and then it just honestly didn't surprise me that you did this. Yeah, maybe it came in a different form than but it didn't surprise me you wanted to help people. It really didn't, because that's kind of what you did all your life through baseball. You were always helping kids. So it was all really, you may find it surprising that it kind of came down as maybe a calling, but it didn't surprise me, just from the person you are.
Well, I was blessed, and Mike Lynch brought the best out of me. And then when there was an organization at the church called HOW, Helping One Woman, and Kelly Maddox was very involved in it. At the time, she was working in the church in community service. So I went and I talked to her, and I said, Kelly, how do you think this would work for men? And I said, my feeling is men keep things so tucked in, where women always have a best friend. They know they can tell them anything, and it's going to stay there. And she said, oh, that's great, Bob. And so she met me, introduced me to Sherry Rodriguez, who was the lady that was running HOW. And we had a meeting over at Starbucks, and I told her what I'd like to do. And she said, well, what are you going to call it, Bob? Well, boom, just like that. I said, how about Hog, helping one guy? And that phrase became how helping one guy started. And here I am getting ready to, August, we'll celebrate the start of our 10th year. And it's been a great trip, and I've had some great people with me. But when you told me that you were interested in getting involved with me, it excited me because I knew that you, like myself, were going to do it right and do it the best way you could. And that's what you brought to the table when you said, "Hey, Bob, I'd like to get involved."
Yeah, Bob, the stars were aligned there too, because I'd always worked for myself, for 30 years. And then all of a sudden, thrown a curveball in my business life. And that business really, with 2007, when the economic collapse of the banking system and everything, I knew I had to do something else. And so it kind of led down a road where I was all of a sudden doing higher purpose work through my company, that I had two other guys that what we're doing is teaching people, or what they eat 21 times every week is going to determine whether or not they get to see the grandkids grow up. So I did that, and my wife finally said to me, he said, "You love what you're doing, don't you?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm saving lives and all that kind of stuff. It's great. I feel great." And she said, "Well, save ours." And so what she was saying is, I wasn't making near the money I used to make. And so I found a company that was lined up with what my new beliefs were, which was higher purpose work. And they were doing things in sustainability and recycling, making the world a better place. And then all of a sudden, there you are. And it's just, the timing was exactly right, as God does it. And when I saw what you were doing, I was so inspired by what you were doing. It was very small back then. It was going to restaurants and, 40 people and that type of thing. And then when I said, yeah, I'm in. But then when you went to North Star, everything just flourished. And now we have dinners and events where there's up to 400 people, and it's just growing like crazy. And it's been really neat. I always wanted to do something in my life that was meaningful, to leave a footprint on this earth. And the timing was perfect. And, I just follow your lead. And hopefully I look around corners for you.
Yeah, you've been saying that for a long time. But, you're a strong Christian guy. You came out of the state of Oklahoma and went and worked in Houston, Texas, and then from there you came to the great state of Georgia and everything. And so when you got involved, I was just starting to grow, and I didn't have a board. I had Steve Kruger, who was the first guy to jump in and say, "Hey, Bob, I'll help you," and he's still with us, and he's done a great job. And I knew your expertise from being your own boss for 30 years and living on commission and knowing, hey, Paul will have some good advice because he's been there, he's done that, and he's been successful. So when you and I spoke and you said yes, I was excited because I knew then I had another leader that could do some things and help Hog grow. And that's just what we've done over the last 9 years, is grow. And
thank you for saying that, Bobby. And it really comes down to, we're all on a journey, right? I mean, we're all in we all pull back from our experiences. I mean, I think you ought to write a book, to be honest, about your whole life journey. But, we pull from that. And I just think that we mesh. We've always meshed. And, we kind of kid around with each other. And throw barbs at each other, but it's I consider you one of my very, very best friends, and I've just a valued friendship more than anything. And it's so cool with a valued friend to do something that's meaningful together. And, I just love it. I love it. And I like to think that we're just starting this thing, as I tell you all the time.
Well, I think we've got to look back over 2020. We had our February dinner in 2020, and then 3 weeks later, everybody was getting told to stay in their house. You couldn't come out of your house. I don't even know if Zoom had started yet for meetings and things, but that became such a big part of the business world to have a Zoom meeting. Sometimes have a Zoom meeting, you got 12 people involved, as we've had board meetings and everything. But all of a sudden, here we are. We've got to learn a new way to do something, and it looked for both of our experiences to make this thing click. And I think it was so important for me to have you, because a lot of the other people, they were they were scared, and so they didn't even want to do a Zoom call, and if they did, they wanted you to have a mask on. So, but I think talk a little bit about last year and 2020, how all of a sudden we were doing what we're doing tonight.
Well, the most important thing I can say about 2020 is that your indomitable spirit just was contagious. You were not going to let 2020 get in the way of us helping people. And it just, I kept telling you, each time we had an event, there's just magic going on. You're a true optimist, and you always have been. And I kind of kidded you around. You're like Professor Harold Hill from The Music Man, the great musical, in that you could come in and sell, ice to Eskimos. And, you kept telling me we can do this. And I just, when the results came in on Zoom, I thought that this was a touchy-feely ministry where you had to be there in person. And that is the ultimate, because you leave there going, oh my gosh, this was incredible. I feel so good about what I just witnessed, and about the community putting their figurative arms around somebody that's in need and a family. But to do it on Zoom where you don't have that, I was floored by the results. We had enormous support, the generosity from our core people that support Hog with these people, and they do it secretly, or not secretly, but they do it without wanting any recognition, just helping folks that are in need. It's just amazing. And that's what if I could say about 2020, your indomitable spirit just drove us. And I just kept saying, Bob, if you say we can do this, I'm a believer. Yeah. And you made a believer out of me. And honestly, I look around corners for you because I'm a little more of a realist than you are. But I've come around to understanding, if you think we can do something, I'm a believer and I'm going to help you. I mean, that's kind of the way it's rolled.
Well, I look back at 2020, and all of a sudden we couldn't help, like our motto is helping one guy going through a life-changing crisis. Well, we couldn't do that because everybody was told to be in the house and restaurants were closed. And then all of a sudden restaurants could open, but everything had to be takeout and everything. So you and I discussed, I said, hey, we got to start feeding the police guys and the firemen and these people who are out there taking care of us, and they need help. so we fed Ackworth, we fed Kennesaw, the police departments. I ran over to the sheriff's department one night, and we fed the guys over at the jail at the sheriff's department. But we wanted to still do something for people. It just couldn't be a single individual. And it turned out to be fun because these people really, I know they ate more pizza last year. The police and firemen ate more pizza last year than they've ever eaten in their life. But that's what made it fun. You could take 10 boxes of pepperoni and sausage to them, and it was like you gave them $100.
I remember us talking early on about that. And I remember because it was a natural fit. Number one, your son's a police officer. Number two, you've always had the ultimate respect for policemen, first responders. And I remember us talking and we were trying to figure out what to do during this time period. And you and I talked about, let's get out there and show that we care, that we're supporting these first responders and, do newsletters about that we're not sitting idle. We're not in a fetal position here. It's tough. It's tough for everybody to deal with it. Everybody dealt with it in a different way. Some people, didn't want to go out at all. Other people a little more daring, but the main thing that was there were still people in need. And especially during that time period, there was a lot of people in need. So, it was really, I remember us it's, coming back to me as you're talking about it, how we navigated through that time period. And I think we made the right decisions together regarding how to deal with that time period because we were both like brainstorming what to do.
Right. And I think here, the happiest moment of 2020, we honored a guy by the name of Jose Martinez, who's a waiter over at La Bamba's restaurant, which Janie and I go to a lot. It's right around the corner. And when you and I meet, we meet there. Well, he had Parkinson's disease. And having been in the hospitality and having owned a restaurant and stuff, most people don't have insurance. I mean, you just don't get a package deal and, okay, you get dental and you don't get anything. And he was such a nice guy that you and I talked to him. So we put our first virtual together for Jose. And we both were astonished with what we did and what that size of that check that we gave Jose. And that somewhat made my year and said, all right, we really helped somebody that needed help and did it our way.
Well, let me just say this, Bob, you're being very kind and modest about this. It was really, honestly, you did so much to prepare, and really that's what this keynote is on that particular event, is you were going out there in advance of the event for over a month, and you were getting everything prepared, all the people at the restaurant, and you were putting up these like a signs and everything, getting everybody to know that it's still a month out. And we had to move the event because of the fact that they couldn't even come to the restaurant. Even for the virtual thing, everything we got moved, if I remember correctly. But you were doing so much of the spade work, what I call, that honestly that nobody else was going to do, Bob, and you did it. And all of a sudden to see it come to fruition, I was so thrilled for Jose, who has a smile that would launch boats. I mean, he is amazing. And that night, his smile never left his face, but I felt so good for what you were getting. You were seeing what all that hard work that nobody else was willing to do that come to fruition. And to see it happen, it gave me goosebumps. So, that's one of the lessons. And I want everybody to know that you've got a board and everything, but my gosh, Bob, you are doing the spade work all the time. And I just hope that, because I'm working all the time and you're retired and you have a little more time than others, but that doesn't mean as Mike Lynch says, that doesn't mean you had to do it. You're the one that did it. You're the one that did it. And he said that when he says that in that video of you, that's exactly correct. You're the one that did it, actually got up and did it. You can think it, talk it, but you actually did it. So, you're kind of my hero in that regard, Bobby.
Well, we were blessed, and I mentioned it, if you remember a couple of weeks ago when we had our board meeting, I mentioned one of the other great feelings was all of our sponsors stayed with us through 2020. Nobody withheld their check that they give us every year. All of them stepped up and did it and trusted that I was taking their money and we were going to use it correctly. And I felt great that we were fortunate enough to have those sponsors do that. But because of that, we got to do what we did in 2020 and get ready for 2021. And then we had to start out with 2 virtuals in 2021 in February and April. So we were still not over the hump yet when it came to having a dinner. So a little bit about our first 2 virtuals with, we did that one for Ethan Bourne, and then we had one for Mr. Testa. And then the best news was when Steve, the facilities guy at North Star, said, "Bob, we can do it. We can do a dinner. We can only have 125." Well, we jumped all over that. So a little feedback on the 2 virtuals and where we were running.
Well, that first dinner, because I'm always, I'm kind of the realist, like I said, and I'm going, I wonder how many people are going to venture out. And they came. But more than that, it's like they gave. I mean, it was, I said to you, it was literally one of our very best dinners as far as the amount of money that we were able to raise. And I was, there's something going on that's kind of special and magical about this ministry, because like I told you, and, it's kind of when we talked about the Good Samaritan, you brought in a speaker early on, not that early on, maybe 2 years ago, and he spoke about it, and you and I talked afterward, and it really hit me. And I said, Bob, the Good Samaritan story, that's exactly what we're about, because the only criticism that anybody seemed to ever have about us, we were helping one guy at a time. But there in the Bible, it talks about, the Good Samaritan helping one guy, on the road. And it's like, wow, and it kind of connects the dots. Mm-hmm. And now it's on our website, that Bible verse about the Good Samaritan. And I think it's something that we can carry forward, being that it's biblical and it's a key verse in the Bible and it's a key story.
You mentioned speakers. Daniel Hoover was a speaker early on for Hog, and Daniel's the executive pastor at North Star. But Daniel spoke of the man that was paralyzed, that his friends got up on the roof and cut a hole in the roof and lowered him down so he could be there with Jesus. And the way he spoke that night, he talked about that's what Hog's about taking that one person and helping them get to what they need. And that has been a blessing with us. We've had some, I remember the second one, only because of the numbers, it was $424 we raised on that second one.
Right.
And you can you can smile at that because of where we've grown, but that person that we gave that check to, they couldn't have been more thankful than the guy that was on the stretcher that got lowered down to be in front of Jesus. So
that's it's I've always told you, Bob, after one of these events, it's not the financial gift as much as the community putting their collective arms around somebody and I see what it does to the families. They literally are crying out of just appreciation during their tough time, and they're in the midst of it most of the time, right? And it just makes them feel they're not alone in this. And you know what? That makes me feel good. Those events. So I come home and I usually talk on the phone after the event. And I give you my critiques. What we could have done better or whatever. But it's always about, gosh, I felt so good to see the family's reaction to what happened that night. It's a magical thing, and it's like you say, it makes a normal, ordinary Tuesday night an extraordinary night, and that's the cool thing about it.
And what excites me now is we're getting ready. We didn't have an August or an October honoree. Well, now we have those, and we're going to move forward, and then in November we're going to have our Christmas concert that is going to be absolutely out of this world. We had 400 in 2019, 386 showed up, and then we'll do our little thing with our special needs kids with Santa Claus, and so I'm excited that we've got a ton to do in the next 4 months, and we're going to be able to bless some people that need to be blessed. I'm excited that in August, Josh Webb, who you unfortunately don't know, but Josh was with North Star when I first started, and he and Christy, his wife, is in charge of the preschool, elementary, nurseries during the Sunday services and everything, and she does a great job. They have 3 sons, and he just had a life-changing crisis, and some things have happened. And the first thing I told Christy was, "Hey, Christy, it's not the money." I said, "It's going to be the people in that room that Josh is going to see. It won't just be his parents or his close friends. It's going to be people from the community that come out just to say thank you to Josh." And I'm looking forward to that, as I am for October. But, God took a little time, and then all of a sudden he put these things in front of us, and now we're ready to rock and roll.
I always, as you were talking about that, Bob, I always thought of the biggest challenge that you had from the early days of the ministry. And the challenge was to get men to accept charity or help. And you're 100% as far as when you hear about somebody, you hear through a grapevine or somebody on the board or somehow or another, a name comes to you. You're 100% on convincing these people that what we do and the way that we do it, they accept the help. And you've never told me, oh, by the way, I went out there and they just don't want that. And I thought that was going to be the biggest challenge, but that's your indomitable spirit, and also the way you describe the ministry and the way that it's going to be and what they can expect. I have never been with you when you did one of those talks, and I wouldn't want to jinx it now. But somehow or another, you get people to understand that we're just going to put our collective arms around you because we know you're not alone, and we're going to help you. And it's going to be a good thing, and they obviously trust you.
Well, I'm again blessed there. I had a meeting Monday with Shannon and Paul Archer. Paul Archer is Archer is not his last name. Paul Archer is Latalia. Latalia, yeah. And as we talked, we were thinking out loud, and Paul said something that we jumped on, and he said, "We're a different kind of charity," and I think that's the truth, because we are a different kind of charity. We give 100% of what we get in goes directly to the honoree. I don't have to pull $300 out to pay for something, and all of a sudden we took 1,000 out and they get it. that whole pot is theirs. From the 424 we made the second time to what we did the last time. And that makes us different. And that's what everybody on the board is proud of that. And it's just a blessing. And so I think my marketing mind goes together. We're going to have a little hog that says we're just a different kind of charity, you know?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And that, you know, I've been throughout my business life, I've been real familiar with guys from United Way and all of those big charities. And, you know, 82% of their money goes to pay for the salaries and the staff and whatever. And that, you know, 18% or 15% goes to help people. And, you know, people that give to those charities, there's nothing wrong with those charities. They need the way they're structured. It just has to support that structure. But this is a different kind of charity. And that's where, again, you have led us down this road of getting these sponsors. And you said earlier in the talk here, you said, you know, you took it almost like it was easy, like to get people to re-up each year. Every single one of our sponsors, it seems like every year they're re-upping because you stay in touch with them. You go out in person and you face to face and you talk to them about what's going on. You involve them in our progress and they feel invested. And, you know, without that, we couldn't do the 100% to the honoree, which is the whole purpose. And that's the beauty of Bob Kelly, the indomitable Bob Kelly, going out there and getting that sponsor money and those people feeling like they're invested in the hog ministry. So, you know, it sounds like I'm singing your song, you know, all night long, but that's not really what I intended to do tonight. But it just feels like, we were talking, it just feels like the right thing to say and the honest thing to say.
Well, again, I use the phrase I'm blessed, and North Star Church, with Mike being the leader, they've just jumped in and from day one have helped us to where when we have our dinners at the community at the Compass Room or up in True North, I don't get a bill 3 days later and an email that okay, you had the room, you owe us $150. They give that and that's a big important thing. I mean, if you had to pay you know, $400 for a room to do that, again, it would have to come from somewhere. So North Star has just been a big buddy of mine, and I love from Mike down to Daniel to Jamie Maddox and all of them that work there. Christy and Josh Webb work there. They're all. It's just like their motto: "Welcome home." They want North Star to be their church home as it is their home away from home. And
well, Bob, you know, every church, the challenge for every church is outreach to the community. And it's a difficult task for a church to do it because they get a lot of pushback, you know, entering into the community and whatever. That you became an arm for them to reach out in the community. And you know, it's not official that, you know, it's official, but not official that HOG, it's a 501(c)(3), it's not part of North Star, but it is part of North Star. And that we definitely have grabbed each other's hand and walked into it. And that's really what made the difference from when you were early on when the restaurants, but then, and I know there was part of you that wanted to keep it that way and not get it necessarily locked into a church environment. But then it became very obvious that the ministry needed that, and they were such a willing partner. And then it's just flourished. So, you know, I know that Mike, from how he's talked about HOG, he gets it, and he says we get it, you know, and it's all goes back to that, you know, 100% given to the honoree, and you know, helping folks. That's what churches are all about. So it became a natural partnership, you know, unofficial. But you know what's so cool about this Christmas concert that was unbelievable the first time? 400 people showing up, which is the biggest crowd we ever had the first time you do it, is that it's a way of saying thank you to North Star, because we give them this incredible Christmas concert. And, it's just kind of our way of saying, hey, thanks, North Star. And that's kind of cool.
Yep. And that's the truth. And you're the one that said that to me, that concert is a thank you to North Star. And we're blessed that we get a lot of North Star people. They come to it and everything. But as I said to Mike a couple of weeks ago when I spoke to him, I said, Mike, when I asked to do that back in 2019, and when I talked to Daniel, I said, I think Daniel sort of looked at me like, you want to do a Christmas concert? How are you going to, what do you know about a Christmas concert? I didn't know anything about a concert, but I surrounded my people with Stephanie and Seth to take care of the music. I had Mike Everhart taking care of the sound system and everything, and Steve, the facilities. And when you walked into that room, I wish we had a picture. When you walked into that room with all those, my flower, I can never think of the name of it, poinsettias, with all those poinsettias in there, it looked like a room from Vegas.
That's, your wife, Janie, who I adore.
And again, I'm not boasting or bragging.
No, I know.
It just was such a good feeling to see that somebody who wasn't really on their staff had taken that room and turned it into what it looked like, Yeah.
I remember Janie telling me, he said, it looks like you guys know what you're doing.
Paul, it's a pleasure for me to have you and your experience on the Hog Board. We've got some good people, and Rob Moon and Lori and Dave Zivick and some who did I miss? Sandra and Eddie Leonard, and we've got
Dave Zivick. Dave Zivick.
We can't forget my first guy and everything. So it's been a pleasure for you and I to do this. I know we were kidding each other earlier today about what we're going to talk about and everything, but from the bottom of my heart, I thank you for everything you do for me and for Hog, and you sort of, since you look around the corners, you make some things easier for me that I could have maybe gotten in trouble had I not had you there. And I appreciate what you do for Hog and everything, and I'm sorry sometimes that you have to travel after a board meeting back up to Big Canoe and everything, but thanks for being my friend.
Bobby, thanks for being my friend. I love you.